DJ Event Planner will change the way you manage and run your business. Streamline all of your procedures and software into one easy-to-manage system. DJ Event Planner, the ultimate online planning tool.
Welcome to DJNTV and Tuesday Night with Ben Stowe. Now introducing the one and only Ben Stowe.
Yeah, baby! Yeah.
Good evening and welcome to Tuesday Night with Ben Stowe. This is where you bring those questions that have been burning in your life and you just put them out there and Ben answers them magically.
Well, it's not magic, John.
Well, that's true. It's not. Ben answers them inspirationally.
Yeah.
I like that.
Inspirationally.
Inspiration. Tuesday Night with Ben Stowe, the Inspirations Show. That would be awesome.
If only I could be inspirational.
And if only we could get that ice cream person back. What happened to that?
So apparently there was talk that tonight there might be ice cream, but apparently my youngest ate it all.
And I heard this statement being shared before we went live.
I'm sure she's just looking out for my arteries.
She
I'm
is.
I'm sure that was her motivation. You know, she threw herself on the ice cream grenade.
Yes,
you know?
she's like, Dad just can't handle. He's not 20 anymore. He's not as active as he used to be. That's
all true. That's all true.
The blood work came back, and it's just not yeah. That was nice of her. That was very nice of her. Except ice cream is good.
Well, I guess we're just left talking about cables.
Yeah, we're going to be going into the extension cord. Yes, Ben is rocking a beard. Thank you guys for joining us out there on the internet world. We are beaming this to a lot of different places tonight. I'm just sharing the restream, or in the restream that goes to everywhere. I'm sharing the link for the main chat that we're going to be following. If you comment on Facebook and such, I will see that, but I can't reply to you as easily because it replies to everybody, all 10, 12 spots that we're streaming tonight. So if you have a question,
you and 5,000 of your closest friends
are going to hear it, or get that comment back to you. So tonight, Ben, I wanted to talk about extension cords. This is actually something that we could flash back to your DVD series, or the training DVDs that you guys did, the boot camp, about 5,000 years ago.
It was only a couple of years ago, but and by the way, no need to flash back, viewers. You could buy one.
They are available and such. And for those who haven't heard about Ben, kind of go through a little bit of what those are.
Well, it was a few years ago, so I'm trying to remember what all was on it, but it was kind of a fun little romp through geek land. But we basically wanted to lay down, as the title says, a boot camp for geeks and, or more importantly, non-geeky people. So we covered a lot of these fundamentals. We covered the fundamentals of electricity. We covered the fundamentals of audio, decibels, measuring. And one of the really cool things is I had some really, really smart people jump in there on the DVD with me. We had a guy who is a 25-year veteran electrical inspector who came in and talked about how to use a voltmeter and some things like that. I had a very good friend of mine who has actually been on the show, Mike Cronin, the guy that we're doing rigging and cupcakes. That's a throwback right there. He's on the DVD talking about cable coiling, and I'll demonstrate some of that tonight even maybe. But anyway, so it wasn't just me. There's some really bright people that came on this DVD with me, and we had a lot of fun with it. Just sort of trying to take these technical things that frustrate and confound people and put it out there in an educational format. Probably not something I would watch straight through. It's about 45 minutes or an hour long, as I recall. But rather it's compartmentalized, and so it's digestible. And again, John, I love what you and I have done for over 100 plus shows now, but it was really nice to be able to have a studio with the graphics department and people who are compositing things. And so the graphics are a little better is what I'm saying. There's animations explaining points and things in there. And that's just what happens when you have a nice big budget.
And you had a lab coat.
And I had a lab coat, which, so a little trivia for our viewers, kind of a little insider here. See what I did there? The DJNTV insider. Yeah. That's actually my dad's lab coat. So, yeah, true story. And the other part of that story is somehow after we got done filming, I lost it. I don't know where the studio says they don't have it and I don't have it. And so my dad doesn't have his lab coat anymore.
So the last you can see of the lab coat is on the Geek Boot Camp DVD, which I just
put. The last that lab coat was ever seen. The glasses were fake. Those were fake. But the lab coat was real. And I think it actually even said Stowe on it. Wow. And I think people thought it was made for the video. No, the truth is it was my dad's lab coat. But anyway,
sorry, Dad.
I had kind of forgotten about that till now. So I sort of feel like I owe my dad a lab coat. Maybe, okay, here's what we need. We need more people to sign up for the DJNTV Insider, and we need more people to sign up for the DJNTV show at the Photo Booth Expo so that John can afford better graphics and he can help me buy my dad a lab coat.
Get the lab coat. But it has to be a Star Wars based lab coat to really bring it all tied all together.
I feel like this is more like a therapy session than a show, and I'm just bearing my soul to 5,000 people in how many different countries, which the DVD was distributed like in 19 countries. That's just super weird. There's people all over the world. I think it's super cool, but it just kind of blows my mind, Anyway, so along those therapy sessions, no, my dad is actually a Star Trek fan.
Oh.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously that makes Thanksgiving a little uncomfortable, but but it's still kind of cool.
There's, I think every father and son has things to reconcile, and that's one of ours. We haven't been able to get past that whole Star Wars, Star Trek thing. Now, I will say, 1977, my dad took me to Star Wars. So, it's not really all that bad. He took me to Star Wars. He was a science teacher, thus the lab coat. And so he was a geek too, just a different kind of geek. So I guess I owe it to him for getting me introduced to the Star Wars universe.
Yeah, but he was there and he's like, Kirk wouldn't have lost that battle.
Yeah. Star Trek is a lot more scientifically sound, I think. But yeah, clearly I'm Star Wars. So, and the people who are watching wondering about extension cords are thinking, just get to the stuff. Well, hey, you know what? It's a free show. Just wait a minute.
Yeah, we're getting there. We're setting it up, building anticipation. Okay, now we can get there. So the premise behind tonight's show, we wanted to talk about extension cords. We did that. Actually, we started talking about it, and then we took a tangent with the Geek Boot Camp DVDs.
Imagine us taking a tangent.
Wow,
by the way, the DVD is available. You can Google it.
I just put the links into the chats for everybody, and I also put it into the description of the YouTube video. All the other ones are already out, so I can't change those.
Yeah, so there's Canadian distribution, UK distribution, European distribution for those viewers. It is only available in English. I speak parts of other languages poorly, not certainly well enough to do a DVD, but I'm learning. I'm trying.
Well, so far the chat boards, because again, I can see a variety of them. The beard is probably the most talked about thing so far tonight in the chat board.
Well, okay, viewers, so enjoy it because it's probably the most talked about thing in this house too. It's going to be gone right after this show. So.
Oh no.
Yeah, I know. It's maybe it'll come back. No Shave November. So
yeah,
I don't know. We should take a poll. What do you think? Keep it or lose it?
Yeah, in the chat rooms right now. Let us know. Keep it. Should it stay or should it go?
And John, you're gonna have to save this because I don't get to see the chat room.
I will.
I'll just tell you that there is only one vote in this household, and it starts with W and rhymes with wife, and and she says it's got to go.
So we'll see if our chat room agrees. Oh, yeah, might not. Okay, so let's talk about extension cords, power cords for powering our gear. What kind of brought me into wanting to talk about this tonight is a couple of weeks ago I was in a tent wedding. We were doing a wedding under a tent, and we had a power pole where we had to pull power from. And it was a rainy, snowy, sleety night, and I had my really nice rubber jacketed extension cord that I've had for a number of years, and I've used it without problem. But it all of a sudden, after about 5 minutes of dinner music, it popped GFI. That was weird, so I went and flipped it, and it ran for probably another 15, 20 minutes, and then it popped the GFI again. Flipped the GFI and was looking around to try to figure out what it was, and then it just stopped working. GFI didn't go that time. There was no power, and I could see with the little lit ends on the other cords that this cord was the problem child. So, and I thought to myself, this is a good discussion for us to have, because first off, in that particular case, I went and I looked so carefully the next day, trying to see if there was a cut or a scratch or anything that would have been showing wear. It looks absolutely fabulous and fine. So I'm not sure. Just obviously, I'm not going to trust that cord. But so I figured, well, that's a good time for us to talk about extension cords.
Yeah, it'd be worthwhile to test it out and see what's going on. There could be water that got inside one of the connectors or something, and maybe there isn't an issue inside the cord, but there certainly could be too. There could be, kind of some micro cracks where water can get in, and that's always a concern for me when we have cables running outdoors, particularly in wet mud, that sort of thing. So, standing water, of course, is always a concern. It'd be interesting to see what you find. I know you've looked at it already, but it'd be, what in the world?
Look at that.
I got you a shake this time.
Thank you. You really want that beard gone, don't you?
Shane, before you leave, we're having a discussion in the chat room, a keep it or buzz it discussion.
Most discussed thing in the chat board, according to I didn't say it was me.
I say trim it way down. I like the scruffy.
Oh, see, no, that's. Of course, they're making comment about the gray in the beard, but we didn't want to say that out loud in front of Ben.
I think that's hot.
What? Well, that's the end of tonight's show, ladies and gentlemen.
We gotta go.
And now he can't remember how to turn his camera back on. Oh, yeah, this is not going to be. We're not going to stand test too well tonight.
Should we just not do the extension cord show?
No, you actually have some great props and discussion, so we'll get there. And for those people who watch the show and put in the comment section, it really starts at whatever. It's probably going to start at about quarter after 15 minutes into the show.
Just, you know what? And particularly if you're watching the replay, you got a fast forward button. But I tell you what, if you fast forwarded through all this, you missed out.
So she went and got you a shake.
Yeah.
And again, just before the show, she came down and she was saying that that just wasn't. Man, she spoils you.
I truly don't know how I am such a blessed guy. I truly don't. That is a sincere emotion. I'm a very, very blessed guy. So.
And I have met your children, and of course, have spent some time with your family. And I would agree, you are a very, very blessed man with your friends and family and such, and what you've been able to build for your friends and family up in the northern Minnesota area.
I'm so fortunate that I have the friends that I do in this industry, and I think, somebody said to me the other day, they said it's not personal, it's business, and I said no, to me it's personal. Mm-hmm. It is. You're right. I've made so many wonderful friends, and I have such a beautiful family. Yeah, I don't know. I can't explain it. It's one of those things that really just humbles you to the core, and you think, how did this happen? I just don't know. So I'm grateful and I'm humbled. So.
Okay.
And I have ice cream.
And you have ice cream. Okay, we're 15 minutes in now. We can get to the tonight's show. So
about that time.
Extension cords. There's a variety of different. I after that incident, I went down to my local Fleet Farm, and I went in there, and I had my son with me, my fourth grader, and fifth grader. We had a great discussion on extension cords because, of course, he's going and he's looking and he wants to grab the cheapest one right away. And there's a reason why it's cheap, and we had those discussions. But let's kind of go through when a person's looking for extension cords. What are some things that we should be looking for?
Well, not in any particular order, these would be kind of my top two. But I guess I'll say number one would be gauge. And if you don't understand what gauge is, I'll explain it real quick. That is how we measure the diameter or the thickness of non-ferrous metals, which means no iron. So that would be inclusive of aluminum and that sort of thing. Now, most of our cords are copper, which again is also non-ferrous. And so the larger the gauge number, the smaller the wire. All right. So here's an example. Here we have this is 16 gauge. Okay, and this is typical for what we'd find inside an extension cord. We've got our 3 conductors in the U.S. They're typically color-coded as our line in black, our neutral in white, and then our ground as green. And so those are 16 gauge. And to provide some contrast, and I'll get to jackets here in a second, but there is a little bit difference in these 2 jackets. But here's a larger gauge. And it's going to be very difficult to see on video. So I brought a more extreme example from some of the cables we use for our shows. And this is a 00 gauge or 2/0, we would say.
Okay.
But I suppose that as they kept making the numbers smaller, which means the wire is larger, they got to 0. And then they thought, well, we need something bigger than 0. So what's bigger than 0? 00.
Let's put two zeros together.
And we also even use up to 4/0, which is 0000. And frankly, I just didn't want to carry it home. So for comparison's sake, here is one of the power cables from my rig. And you can see this one is indicated as white as our neutral. So it is the same basically as this. And so there you can see the difference in gauge. Okay. So smaller the number, bigger the wire.
So Ben,
16 gauge, 2/0 gauge.
So I was doing some work. I had to replace a heater in my son's room this afternoon. And of course, house wiring is typically solid copper.
Correct.
And now the things you were just showing me, that your big power cable is a braided, or would it be braided? What would it be?
Stranded.
Stranded. Okay.
Yeah.
Is there
Because it needs to be flexible.
And that's
when you're pulling that like THHN or something in your house wiring, it's going in a wall and it's staying there. This wire is going to get coiled and uncoiled a lot. And I actually have a really good example we'll come back to when I want to talk about our hybrid cable for a little bit because there's some things there. Mm-hmm. But let's just stay on extension cord characteristics. I don't think you're going to find a solid, copper extension cord. If you did, I don't know. That'd be news to me and I wouldn't buy it. Those are all going to be stranded. And then, of course, there are some differences within the stranding and that sort of thing. But I would say that's way down on the list.
Sure.
So we'll skip that. Number 1, we'll say is gauge. Number 2, this is a little tougher, and it's the jacket type. So this is what's called a thermoplastic jacket. And you can see it's kind of shiny and a little bit hard. And pretty much all of the cables you get with gear are thermoplastic, and they kind of have that weird, they stay in the shape that they came in.
Yeah.
And they eventually kind of break away, particularly if they have molded ends, that sort of thing. They crack and whatever. So I'm a much bigger fan of rubber jackets. And typically we're going to find things like SJOW or SJOOW. And the letters indicate the cables, the jacket's resistance to things like oil and water and that sort of thing. J is junior service, which is 300 volts and that sort of thing. But here we can see this jacket here. What do we got here? Is this... I think this one's an SOOW, so it's not a junior rated. It's a 600 volt jacket, and thus it's a thicker jacket.
Okay.
But you can see it has more of a matte finish, and it's very soft and rubbery, and it stays soft and rubbery. And so, to me, that I like. And unfortunately, it's very difficult you can't really go to Home Depot or Lowe's or whatever and buy a cable like that. You could buy the cable and make an extension cord, but if you're going to buy a pre-made extension cord with molded ends, it's probably going to be thermoplastic.
Sure.
And me, I just don't like them. They don't last as long. They don't wear as well. They don't coil as nicely. So lots of reasons I just don't like them. Mm-hmm. So that would be number 2. And this is not in any particular order, but number 3, is like some kind of an approval, CSA, ETL, UL, that sort of thing, and pretty much any cable is going to have that. This one here, you can see maybe, can I get it up there? It says UL on it.
Yeah, right there. Yeah.
There you go. Yep. So
Speaking of the jackets now, how does temperature work with or inhibit or cause issues when it comes to working with extension cords outside?
Well, it's funny you say that. So this one here, the same one, if I can get it up there, also says 90 degrees Celsius somewhere.
Yeah, right there. Yeah, I see that. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So jackets have different ratings. And of course, heat can accumulate within electricity, rather within an electrical circuit. And so if we have a very hot condition outside, we may need to derate the cable's capacity, meaning it's no longer capable of carrying as much as it would have been, because as the cable gets used, it gets warmer. Oh, I just remembered that's also in the Geek Boot Camp. We had some fun with that.
Yes.
I totally forgot. We took a couple cables down to our local fire department.
Yep.
And ran high current through them and watched them heat up under a FLIR camera, an infrared camera.
That was a cool demonstration.
Thanks, John. That was a good plug. I don't know if it was intentional or not, but it was good.
Yeah, we were going to get there. If you wouldn't have worked it in, I was going to talk about the firemen coming or you taking to the fire hall. That was pretty neat.
Well, and I'll tell you what, it's worth the cost of the DVD just to see the rookie fireman that they basically pushed onto camera. And this guy's like, oh.
Yeah, it was a little deer in the headlights look.
Anyway, I'm sure he's a veteran now, and I'm sure he's doing a great job for us. And I appreciate all the fire men and women, for what they do. But it was hilarious to watch the veterans just sacrifice this guy. Just here, take him, put him on camera. Okay. But the other thing is, of course, in cold weather, a rubber jacket is going to, I say, more pliable because it's not going to lose something.
Yeah, we all of a sudden just lost. I heard in cold weather, and then I lost you.
Oh, well, maybe the fireman got to my internet.
I was going to say, that was quick.
Yeah, well, they're on the ball here. I can tell you that.
Yeah.
All right.
There we go.
Back with you now.
Oh, it just you flickered back in. Your video did, and I can hear you, and you're in and out, in and out, in and out. And it looks like I've got a good connection here.
Okay, weird. Am I good now?
I can hear you. So let's just continue in the video.
Can you see me or not see me?
Yeah, it's just we're dropping a lot of frames now, so it's probably coming back here.
Interesting.
But yeah, you were talking. You mentioned cold weather as related to the jackets, and then it was gone.
Okay. Well, wow. Sorry about that, viewers. So in cold weather, a rubber jacket is going to stay more pliable. And I wouldn't say it's going to be pliable. It depends on how cold you get. When we did Hockey Day, Minnesota, it was 36 degrees below 0 Fahrenheit. Nothing was pliable.
Yeah.
But those thermoplastic jackets can even just shatter. I've seen them literally break off of cables and just kind of come off in chunks. So again, I'm a fan of rubber. SJOW, that sort of thing, SJOOW. Those are my picks. I was looking to see if I had more props.
Somebody had asked the question, does NLFX, do you guys make custom cords using that capability with the rubber jacket?
We do. And actually, I brought one just to show coiling later. But here you can see this is a 12 wire gauge SJOW UL rated. This is another thing I like a lot. We use field serviceable connections. So if this breaks or if anything happens to this cable, I can repair it in the field. With just a screwdriver, I can repair this cable. And that is really important. And if it's broke, you're done.
Sure.
So yes, we do make professional grade cords. We don't have our own power cable. We do have our own mic cable and our own speaker cable and instrument cable and hybrid cable. Those are unique to us. We don't have our own power cable. We just use a high grade SJOOW cable and build the assemblies for you. But yes, we absolutely do make those. So,
and one of the questions earlier was talking about the cord length and loss of power. So I'm going to make sure we hit that at some point.
So that's where gauge comes into play. And real quick, why don't we just pop up this graphic? Is our video stable again?
Yeah, it just caught up, and it's interesting when it did because you became an auctioneer. You were an auctioneer talking very quickly. Boom. Hang on a sec.
All right.
Hang on a sec.
So this slide is from a really old PowerPoint that I used, but I happen to have this in this format. And here we can see the length of a cord, and we can see the power draw in amperes. Okay.
Okay.
And so what we can see here is that if we are drawing less than 2 amps and we are going 50 feet, 18 gauge cord is fine.
Which is like
now,
lamp cable.
If we go ahead, say that. What's that question?
That's like lamp, end table type lamp cord.
Well, it's small anyway.
Yeah.
And so remember this cable, I think, are my windows still up here to see me?
Yep, we can see that. That was 16 gauge, you said.
That is. So if we needed to go 100 feet, we would have to go 16 gauge at a minimum. Okay. Absolute minimum. Now, does that mean that I couldn't use a 12 gauge? No, of course I can. I can use anything bigger. I could use this 2-aught. That'd be a little silly, but but it would be fine because what we're talking about here is ampacity, which generates heat, and the capacity and the resistance to the flow of electricity in those smaller gauges.
Sure.
And remember, a bigger number is a smaller gauge, so it's a little bit hard to keep track of. Now, let's say that we needed to go. Now, if you need to go 500 feet, I'm not saying I love this idea at all, okay? But that's what the math says would be acceptable in terms of volt loss. And it is a phenomenon called volt drop. So that's where we run into issues here. By contrast, though, if I need to draw 18 amps, then I need to go to 14 gauge instead of 18 to go 50 feet. So we can see here this chart. And I'll tell you what, viewers, this is not the end-all, save-all. You should always follow manufacturer's directions. If they and my chart disagree, you got to go with them. This is just something I created as a convenience, but it should not be considered the gospel. That being said, I do have a copy of this that I will send you. If you email me or message me, I will send you a copy of this chart as a PDF, and it can be a kind of a handy reference guide. And by the way, somebody asked, do you respond to your own email? And the vast majority of the time, the answer is yes. There are times that I have coworkers step in and help, but 99% of the time, if you get an answer from my email, it's from me. So there you go.
Excellent.
So anyway, that kind of explains that chart. And the last thing I'll talk about is these red X's, which should be painfully explanatory in and of themselves. But basically what we're saying is that if you need to go 200 feet and you need 18 amps, I don't have a solution for you. You got to use something else like a power distro or something. That might be where you're running into that 2-aught or something, but don't do it. Or drop your load to 15 and use 10 gauge cord. So that's what the red X's mean is there's no extension cord solution for you because we only go to 10 gauge in my chart.
So the plug itself, I mean, there has to be some limitations in the connectivity in the plug for the capability of carrying electricity, I would think. So, I mean, we're talking about, the 2 little prongs and they're touching in the outlet, potentially, 2 little bars, if that, or, making that full contact. So I would assume that's got to be a weak point in this kind of a situation also.
Yes and no. The amount of brass there is probably more than adequate for more than the amperage that it's rated for. However, more importantly, let's take a look at a few. Everybody's pretty familiar with this one.
Yep.
This is a NEMA 515. This is an R for receptacle. And this is a NEMA 515P for plug. And the 2 vertical slots and then the round, the smiley face looking thing, that's the ground. That is a 15 amp cord. So that cord is rated for a 15 amp, receptacle and plug. Many times you'll go into a venue and you'll see one that has 2 vertical slots and one has kind of a T off on the side. That is a 20 amp because a 20 amp actually just has a horizontal and a vertical. But if it can handle 20, it can also handle 15. So they built that combination receptacle so you could plug in either a 15 amp or a 20 amp. So that's kind of how that works out. And then there's a whole chart of NEMA connectors. There are some that have the designation L, which is for locking. They twist in. There are different configurations for 30 amp. There, for 208, for 220, all kinds of different voltages. And that helps you to kind of identify what should be plugged into what. So we're rapidly jumping down a rabbit hole where things can get a little bit dizzying. But yeah, it's not necessarily the capacity of the brass itself, or whatever metal is in there. It's not necessarily that metal can't handle it. It's that they're configured in different ways to help us understand what should be plugged into what, and what's safe to plug into. For example, a 15 amp plug will fit into a 20 amp receptacle, but a 20 amp receptacle will not fit into a 15 amp receptacle. We should not be able to draw more than 15 amps from that receptacle. That's why it's designed that way.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
I've wondered about that on numerous occasions. If there was if that was a weak point. So.
This is maybe a good time to talk about GFCI. You mentioned your GFCI kept tripping, and outdoor we should use a GFCI. If you don't have a GFCI available, there are portable GFCIs that we can get. And this has, you can see here, our NEMA 515 plug on one end. And this one actually happens to be a triple tap on the other end of 515s. And then in line, we have this GFCI built in. So GFCI stands for ground fault circuit interrupter.
There we go.
And that means that if there is a fault in the ground or there is a current flow that it feels is indicative of that, it will interrupt the circuit, it'll trip it, And that can be mighty irritating when you lose your power to your rig, but it's not nearly as irritating as losing your life. So
yeah, there's that. Sometimes
it feels like it. Sometimes in the most inopportune moments in a show, you wish you'd have just got zapped. But I feel your pain, viewers. But in reality, GFCI is a great way to go. It is also an excellent solution where there is no ground. So when you have a 2-prong and you don't have the ability to plug in a 3-prong, a GFCI will give you protection where there is no ground there. So that's something that can be used. So the last thing that I have, and then of course we'll answer some questions, but I think this is worth talking about. People have identified the risk when running audio signal and power side by side. And so some people have talked about the combination cables, whether or not they're good. Some people have had mixed results with some of the competing products. I'm happy to say that I've only heard of good results with our cable, but I don't think that's an accident. We were not unaware of these risks. We were fully aware of them. And so this is the top secret cutaway of one of our NLFX Platinum Series hybrid cables. And like it even says NLFX on the jacket there a little bit, a little nugget for you. But what we've done inside, here's the top secret cutaway. You can see that everything is twisted together. All right. And you'll notice the word twisted will be said a lot in the next couple minutes. And that's designed to keep this interference out of our audio signal. This particular hybrid cable has 2 audio carrying conductors, so we could run stereo left, right with our power. And then we have these fibrous materials in here that are basically designed to give our cable kind of a full round body. Makes it a little bit stronger when it's being coiled and when it's being stepped on and that sort of thing, just sort of to preserve the longevity of the cable. But inside, you'll notice one of our signature things, which is this incredible braid. I don't know how well that's coming into focus, if at all.
You can see it a little bit, yeah. Very tight braid.
Yes, very tight braid. And that is the same kind of signature that we have on our Platinum Series mic cables. Not aware of who else has that in their hybrid cables. Haven't seen it in the ones I've looked at. But inside that braid, something else we have, and I don't know how well, again, we'll see how you can see this, but there's also a foil shield in there.
Okay.
How's my focal length there? Am I in the right spot?
We can pull it back just a little bit. We can see that there's a foil there. Yeah.
Yep. So inside that, there's also foil. And then inside that, and it's easier to see, I think, looking at the outside jacket, but you can see that everything inside that jacket is also twisted. So what happens there is that any interference that gets through both the braid and the foil is going to arrive to both of our signal conductors, but at completely opposing phase. So 180-degree phase, and it's going to cancel itself out, common mode rejection. So that's one of the tricks. The other trick is our power cable itself, also twisted. And inside the power cable, that's also shielded. There's that foil shield on the power cable as well. So we went to, and here I can slide that foil shield up a little bit to show you. And then inside there's also a drain conductor. So we went to extreme lengths to make sure that over the safe distances for our hybrid cables, which would be 25, 50, maybe 100 feet, that you could reliably run just stone quiet audio next to power. So, but there's a lot of physics in there. So I know a lot of people say, well, it looks the same on the outside. I get it. But it's like what my mom always used to tell me. It's what's on the inside that matters. So, and you know what's inside me, John? Ice cream.
A hot fudge shake there.
So anyway,
so
that
jumping back
covers, I think, the hot points for me about extension cords. What did I miss?
We've been hitting the questions, but let's jump back. You had made back to my cord that was what I was a little suspect of. How would a person test that safely? What would you recommend with that?
Oh my goodness! I'll tell you what. I had the perfect tester in here literally yesterday, and I took it, put it in my toolbox. I wasn't aware we were doing this show. It's a little bit tough, but one of the things that I think everybody should have, I feel like I should just go get it. So why don't you talk amongst yourselves for about 1 minute, and I'll be right back.
I've got this. I can do this. We'll talk about February while you're gone. For those of you who have not heard, the DJNTV and Ben Stowe and I will be in Las Vegas February 24th through the 27th doing the DJNTV DJ Conference down at South Point Casino. This is going to be going on in conjunction with Photo Booth Expo. We're going to have the DJNTV rooms over here where we're going to be doing 3 days of training, and 2 days of training, and then the third day will be in a different room. And then there's going to be the Photo Booth Expo where they're going to do 2 days of training, and then the third day they're going to also be in a different space. Exhibit hall, the huge exhibit hall of Photo Booth Expo, which already has quite a few DJ companies that are there, DJ related companies. This year there's going to be even more, and they're all going to be in this huge exhibit hall. It's total chaos. It's carnival. It's fun. It's just a neat experience to just check out, if nothing else, the exhibit hall. But we also have the educational side. Ben Stowe is going to be kicking it off Monday. That would be February 24th at noon. That's when we start things up. And we go from noon on Monday till about 7 o'clock that night, 7 or 8 o'clock that night, actually. Monday's kind of a heavy day. We're going to have a lot of great content for those who are out there wanting to build their business. That's kind of our theme this year, is building your business in 2020. Monday's going to be from noon until 7, 8. Tuesday, we run until 5 o'clock, from morning until 5, because at 5 o'clock, the exhibit hall opens, and that's a big, big thing, and we don't want to be up against that. Wednesday, we've got things going on throughout the day, so some great content in your DJ track, and then we're going to have some master classes that we'll be talking about actually more next week that are going to be part of the show also, that you guys can jump in on with that. So go out to djntv.com/tickets, use promo code DJNTV SHOW, SHO, 2020, and you'll be able to get your tickets at half price. They're going to be half price now until Halloween. Once they put the candy away, the price of the tickets goes up. So make sure you guys jump in on that before Halloween is over.
After Halloween, no treats, just tricks.
No treats for you.
So every DJ, every pro audio person, actually everybody, just everybody. And then I forgot to show you how to coil a cable. We're supposed to do that too. But everybody should have one of these.
Yes.
In your house, in your work box, everybody should have one of these.
What are they called?
What we can see here, there's 3 lights on here, 2 orange and a red, and there's a little color code. And that tells you basically, now this may not tell you the status of your cord, John, because it may be something very, very, It may light normally, but it's still tripping the GFCI.
Mm-hmm.
If the cord is quit completely, then I think this is going to tell you why. But this won't necessarily identify, small problems like that, but it will tell you if you have an incorrect ground or if you have a missing conductor, that sort of thing. It will do a really good job of that. If you want to get a little bit more detailed, and I guess this is another plug for the DVD, learn how to use one of these. But this is an indispensable tool for me, just a multimeter, something that's going to allow us to put probes in and identify, what's what. We can start getting a little bit more granular there, digging in and seeing what's going on. Again, without seeing your cable, I couldn't tell you what the issue is.
Yeah, no, that's for sure. For sure, that's so.
But everybody go buy one of these right now. They're like $5. They're less than a shake.
But the shake is
your life.
The shake is delivered, so that's much more special.
Yeah, if I had to choose between the two, I might be conflicted. I don't know. Hopefully I would choose wisely, but
yeah, probably not.
But everybody should have one of those. I think they're just worth their weight in gold. There are other gizmos and devices too that are really handy, but that's going to tell you, in a nutshell, what's up. Of course, we've, I've got my kilowatt back here. That's another plug for the kilowatt.
Oh yeah.
This would be something else you could use to just plug into the wall, and it will identify voltage and that sort of thing. So I guess, if you've picked up one of these from like the 50 times we've mentioned it, we really should get a sponsorship from these guys.
Yeah.
I bet I've sold 1,000 kilowatts for them. And anyway, it's a great device. Even though we're not making any money off that thing, hey, if it works good, actually, I don't think we make money off it. Most of the stuff we talk about in the show.
Probably not so much. Yeah, not so much.
Oh, well.
But
speaking of which, have you talked to Dairy Queen?
I was just going to say, but Dairy Queen's doing well. There's that. Ben, let's see, Howie threw out to talk about the if you're using multiple extension cords to run power, is there, if you have different gauge wires, different gauge cords, is there a progression of the gauges of how you would go from, if you were having to run 100 feet and you had to run 250 foot and they're two different gauges?
I suppose, you start with the biggest wire and work down to the smallest. It's kind of the same philosophy you'd follow from the utility pole, but at the end of the day, the chain is only as strong as its weakest link. So, you would have, I suppose, I guess I'll just stick with the go from biggest to smallest answer. Mm-hmm. Use your biggest cords till you run out of them and then go to your smaller cords.
And I think that as you were showing the writing on the side of the cables, that's something that a person has to pay attention to, because one of the days Michael was looking for cords for the sub, and he wanted to get the thickest cords for his subs, and he pulled out some of those, and some of those cords you looked at that and you're like, oh, that's got to be a really thick wire, and it's 18 gauge. And then he went to find another one.
Here's a good example, John. So this wire here, this might be a total disaster. Let's try this.
As long as it doesn't,
this, we're going to coil it later anyway.
As long as it doesn't tip our shake over.
So this wire here and this wire here.
Yep, two definitely different diameters there.
This one is 12 gauge. This one is 14 gauge. This is an SJO jacket, and this is an SO jacket. So this is a junior service jacket, meaning it's only 300 volt jacket. This is a 600 volt jacket, neither of which really matters for us, but the metal inside is bigger in this cord as opposed to this cord. So that's an excellent point, John. Pay attention to the side. And also, don't believe things that are too good to be true. This is probably rare, but it happens. We found speaker cords from, China that were not anywhere close to what they said they were. We saw that with the competitor's mic cable. They advertised that they were using 18 gauge mic cable, which I thought was silly in the first place. And second of all, it wasn't anywhere near 18 gauge inside. You can print anything you want on a jacket. It was just completely false. So somewhere I have those pictures with the caliper and stuff and some really awesome calculations for figuring out gauge based on diameter. But anyway, I think most of the stuff is probably pretty close to accurate, but there's also that risk too that the writing on the jacket means nothing.
Yeah, that's certainly.
But assuming it's correct, and in this case, I think it's correct for both of these. That's just interesting to see how the thicker jacket is actually a smaller gauge inside. So yes, pay attention to the side of the jacket. That's the moral of that story.
I think we're ready for the big finale of cord wrapping.
All right. So everybody hopefully has heard of over-under.
Yeah, I've been practicing my wrapping, with the cables. So you have that, and you're going around the elbow and.
Oh no.
Yeah,
No.
I've been practicing. I've gotten really good at it. I can.
No, stop practicing. Don't do that. Actually, you know what's funny, John, is I went looking both in our warehouse and our tech facility, and then also at my home, to see if I could find an abused cord that had been wrapped around the elbow or had something like that had been done to it, so I could show what happens to those cords. And you know what? I don't have any.
You have taught them well.
I looked everywhere and we don't have one. So that made me very happy. All of our cords look like this. Nice uniform coils.
Mm-hmm.
And I untied the string on this one so we can demonstrate, but this cord will lay out nice and flat. And here's why. We're going to coil it using a method called over-under. And so by doing, we're not going to introduce any memories. You've seen cables that have gotten so badly twisted and things inside, there's just no saving them. You can't fix them. You can't train them back.
Yep.
They're too far gone. So we want to get them when they're young and train them right. So let's do this. Get those cables young
and train them right.
Reprieve. You don't have to look at my face anymore for a minute. So just going to go ahead and undo this cord here. Okay. Now I could do this right-handed, left-handed, upside down, or right side up, but I'm going to start with my left hand because I'm right-handed. So what I've got is a little bit of the coil kind of hanging over my hand, and then I'm going to take my first sort of arm length here, and I'm going to give it a slight clockwise twist. Is that in frame? Can you see that okay?
Yeah, we can see your left hand. We obviously not the right hand yet, so there we go.
Right, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to do a slight right-hand twist. You'll notice it wants to coil. See how it just wants to come right into place here. There you go. Okay, that's my over.
Yep.
And then my next one, I'm going to do just the opposite, and I'm going to go a slight counterclockwise twist, and it's going to come under. Okay, there's the magic. So over. Snagged on a box next to me here. This one is coming under. Okay. Over. Under. Over. Under. And we tie it. Take my strings here, or your Velcro, or whatever your method is.
And there we are.
And that cord will lay out straight and flat every time. And it won't develop damaging memory inside. It won't get broke.
So cord length for that method, when does it too short and it just doesn't work? And when does the cord become too long and it just doesn't work using that method?
I coil my cell phone charger that way. Actually, I think it's funny to watch, like all of my my stage hand guys, my stage friends, whatever, we all do everything. We coil everything that way now. It just becomes second nature, which is good because then you get very, very, very fast at it. I had a guy tell me one time, he goes, well, you do it your way and I'll do it over my elbow. And I said, I'll still smoke you. I said, it won't matter. I've coiled millions of feet of cable, man. I'm not afraid of you. Anyway, length and gauge. You can imagine if we go back to our 2/0 feeder that we were looking at, and we do have those that are 100 feet long. We have 4/0 ones too. You can imagine this would get pretty arduous to coil pretty fast. You're not going to hold that. You know, most average people can't hold 150 pounds of cable in one hand while they coil with the other.
Not so much, no.
But here's the beautiful thing, and I'm pretty sure Mike demonstrates this on the DVD, but you can do the same thing on the ground. You can do the over-under method on the ground. So if I'm doing that with longer cables where it's going to get to be a lot to hold, either because the cable is long and heavy or it's just I'm going to be holding it a long time, you can coil that on the ground. You know, or if it's a very big, heavy cable like feeder, you can just coil it on the ground, and you can do the exact same thing over under. It's really difficult for me to demonstrate where I'm at now, but that's exactly how I do it. So there really isn't any too long, I think. You know, I suppose if you're using reels or something for really long cables, that might be the lone exception. But virtually every cable we have, this is how we do it.
And as Chris mentions that he has only been doing the over. In time, that cord is going to get that same twist over and over and over, and eventually get to the point where it will become weak and problematic.
That's why we alternate. So it's never really developing that memory. It's, you know, it's alternating twists over those short coils. So it's not getting that continuous, you know, slinky effect going on. So I think I just coined a phrase, the slinky effect. We should patent that.
Yeah, we should get a t-shirt made.
So yeah, give it a try, Chris. You know, the over under, again, I think you'll love it. Now I'll say this too. I say this when I train people how to do this. If you have to do 2 overs in a row, sometimes the cable just doesn't want to lay. It just doesn't want to go the way you want to go. Or if you have to do 2 unders in a row, that's okay. It's totally cool. No big deal. But as a general whole, we want to try to alternate overs, unders. And yeah, just, I mean, I don't know if there's anybody watching the show that's been out on a show with me. We've had a few friends I know that have, and they just marvel that we have, you know, hundreds of cords that are all in great shape. And some of those cords are 10, 15 years old.
Wow.
So yeah, you take care of them. They'll last a long time.
Excellent. I think that's good spot to put a bow in tonight's show. Yeah, we better, because Brian's coming up quickly now.
Oh yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Well, and the ice cream is it's kind of melting away here.
But it is a shake, so you can still have that. Thank you guys for being with us tonight. We'll be, let's see, we've got next week we'll be off. It's kind of an open chat night with Brian and such. And then the following week we'll be actually coming to you from we're going to shoot something in Allentown. Oh, by the way, Ben, we're going to shoot something in Allentown.
I'll be there and you'll be there, so
exactly.
Why not? Makes sense.
Yeah. And we'll if Brian talks nice, we'll let him sit in with us too.
Yeah, he's Mr. Big Shot. He's the keynote out there.
Exactly. So what we're going to do is
deservedly so, by the way, deservedly so.
We're going to set up in the back in a corner, and we're going to be like the guys heckling Brian. Yes. It'll be great. It'll be great. It'll be fabulous. And, you know, he's going to he'll tell us exactly where to go, because
I'm going to start watching Muppets right now so I can do the research for my games. So.
We'll bring it on. Once again, thank you guys for being with us tonight. We will catch you then in a couple of weeks, coming to you from Allentown. Good night, everybody.